The Chiefs are putting the band back together again, but how are Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy going to work together again with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? What does this offense look like? What combine guys might be able to help them this week as the combine gets ready to kick off? Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. We're free on every platform that you can find, and even some that I haven't even thought of yet. Hope that you enjoy that. Like, sub, and hit the bell over on YouTube, and leave us an iTunes review if you would. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as RGR Football, and the host over at the Locked On NFL Draft Show. We have some fun today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm actually back. I missed about 3 or 4 days, so appreciate you holding down the fort. I am Chris Clark, and I founded Chiefs Corner. You can find me at Chiefs Corner on Twitter, as well as Locked On Chiefs on Twitter, usually the one that is tweeting from there, unless you see misspellings, and then it is the other guy that is right up. I guess it's right there.
2 thumbs and can't spell this guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that's okay. Wouldn't you know it? I pre-record everything I needed to do. I'm totally prepped and ready to roll as we have to go away for the weekend for all my kids' sports events, and the Nagy thing drops. And so I've literally been without equipment all weekend, came back to work on Monday and tried to get something done. This is something we talked about a couple of weeks ago as a possibility, and there was a little back and forth, but now that it's a reality, now that the consistent part with Eric Bieniemy back in the house and what the old flashback was to Matt Nagy, how does the initial reaction for you go?
I think it's positive. I think that you were looking at a situation where I wasn't expecting Bieniemy back after stuff started falling out in Kansas City, but obviously that is not going to be the case. He's back, and he's going to be back for another year. We'll see how his role may change. I'm curious to see if that changes at all this year, and if we find out more about that. I do think that bringing Nagy back was the best decision they could make because they're putting him at QB coach. They absolutely need a good QB coach. They didn't have anybody in-house. The guy that they wanted, it sounded like, was Liam Cohen, who went to the Rams. So I would think that they're in a better position now than they could have been otherwise. And I think Nagy coming back with a senior assistant role as well as QB coach, I think kind of shows that he understands that he's going to be probably next in line to be the OC if and when Bieniemy gets a job, hopefully next year.
Yeah, and that really is, I think, the long-term goal. You're right. We'll see what happens with Bieniemy. Again, on a 1-year contract, as we understand it, coming back. That's a lot of authority to fit into one quartet. And I'm counting Patrick in the quartet, but with Andy Reid and now Eric Bieniemy, who was interviewing for head coaching jobs, Matt Nagy, who's just coming off of a head coaching job. That's a lot of authority that they're used to wielding. Do you think that this causes any problems?
I don't, but I also think it makes for a very interesting possibility of not having a veteran QB on the roster. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going with a young QB coach that you think is going to be somebody that is, learning as they go versus a guy that's been there, done that, played the position and has experience there, maybe you can get away with not having a veteran backup. Maybe Shane is going to be the backup this year. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the way they'll go, but it'd be interesting to see if that's the way they lean.
Yeah, and if the very least, even if they don't go that way, they want a third QB, whether for camp or stashed on the practice squad or whatever, it opens up the options for them to draft another quarterback. Like they always talk about wanting to take a quarterback every year, see who they can develop, or getting a not $6 million backup type veteran and have an option there as well. So I think that opens the door to a lot of cap control possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. And you're definitely going to have to be taking that into account with Mahomes' contract starting to take off this year. So something to watch. And I do think that it's a good dynamic between Nagy and Reid, and I would imagine Bieniemy, just because they've all been in the same building together. They're in a little bit different roles than they were before, but I don't think that's going to cause an issue. Now, I will say this. It's interesting that it may end up working out in the Chiefs' favor just a little bit if Bieniemy stays and gets a head coaching job next year, because then they still get 2 3s.
Plus. I'll take that. Thank you very much. I think we're gonna reap the benefits, I hear, of having that additional time to analyze what a third round pick is going to do for them this season. Then if it happens to be too later, then all the merrier. I wonder if there's not a little bit of conflict involved, though, because of that many voices, especially two guys. One that, despite all his efforts, and I can't say that Matt Nagy's made himself a name despite working with Trubisky and Dalton and a little bit of the rookie, right, in Justin Fields. But I don't know that he's made himself a comeuppance either. I think like he's still got some things to prove. I think the enemy still got some things to prove, especially in his mind in staying another year. He wants to stand out. And I am just a little bit concerned that many voices that want to make that many points for themselves in terms of contribution to the offense against what is already basically a sealed unit with Mahomes and Reid. I think that could lead to maybe some frustration on the coach's part and hopefully not any frustration on what we see on the field.
There's possibilities there. The roles were reversed when Nagy was here before. So there's possibility there's going to be conflict there. There's possibility there's going to be conflict just from, having all three of those types of voices in the room and in that scenario. But I do think that they've all at least worked with each other before, so they know what they're getting themselves into. They obviously think that it's something that can work. The reality for Nagy at this point is he wasn't going to be going elsewhere. He wasn't going to get an OC job this year. This was his best opportunity to be in a position where he can still coach and still do some things. And I'm sure he loved his time in Kansas City, as most coaches and players seem to do. So I think that also plays into it as well.
Yeah. I won't argue with you. I think we need to get into some then and now, before versus what's coming, that kind of thing here in a second. But the football season might be over. Basketball certainly isn't, as are a number of sports. Maybe someday there'll be baseball again. You never know. If you want to lay odds on any of those things, you can do it at one place for all of your player performance props, all the next fired coach, where he's going to land, that kind of thing. It's all over on betonline.net. You can go check that out and make sure that they have everything for all of your betting needs, whether it's crazy or subtle or just a money line. You never know. It remains the best spot for the scores and the podcasts and the news that you need to make informed decisions and lay your money down on the line in a smart way. Check it out for all the coverage of all the major sports and some of the eclectic ones. Head over there to the website, check it out on your mobile device, and learn more about the trends and all the action. You can find that all on BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to play a little game here of then versus now. And a couple of things. I'll throw it out and you just tell me what you think.
Okay.
Does Eric Bieniemy get more influence over the play designs or less in 2022?
I think that depends on Andy Reid and if he really wants him to have a coaching gig. If he really wants him to have a coaching gig, I think he has to give him some more control.
The correct answer was yes, but yes. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, that's what it comes down to. Reid has got to give him the ability to start actually play calling, and it needs to be known that he's play calling and designing plays and doing that type of job, or he's not going to have a chance to get a head coaching gig. And the thing that he has working against him right now is he's older than most of the candidates that are getting jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing he can do about that.
Fair enough. Okay, second one. Does Matt Nagy's presence allow Patrick to play lighter and not press as much, not be so concerned about, every single throw, and kind of let him relax a little bit?
No. And I say no because I don't think that Nagy is going to change the way Mahomes looks at the way he plays. I think that he could maybe evolve a little bit, but I think that Mahomes is pretty much his own harshest critic, and I guarantee you he is going to be watching all the snaps from that Cincinnati game, both of them, to see what went wrong and try to figure out where he can go going forward.
I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out because from what I understand, Mike Kafka was more like the Nagy type, and that balance may be not only necessary, but with the added impetus of being a head coach for a few years, like that might bring more gravity to that. I hope that's the way it works out. So let me spin off of that one. Does Matt Nagy's presence bring more creativity back to the pass game?
Possibly. He did his own thing in Chicago. He was able to call some of his own plays. He was able to bring some different play designs and see different things. going away for a couple of years from Kansas City where they have the playmakers and the quarterback, obviously, to make just about anything in the NFL work. I think that could add some creativity as well. And Nagy could bring some of that from Chicago.
I hope so. I hope that the fact that they had to run in Chicago a little bit more in order to protect that slurry of quarterbacks allows them to get some more creativity in the run game.
Imagine that you're going back to the run game.
Well, they have to have it. The way that we saw small boxes, 3-man rushes, they have to be able to attack that. And I think that actually does be more than just, we're going to get 3 men, but let's run a draw or, something simple like that. I think there needs to be a little bit more creative ways to attack those defenses that needs a fresh set of eyes. Maybe somebody who isn't under the spotlight as much. And I hope that Nagy can bring that to it.
The thing that's going to be key on that is being able to figure out when they're going to be doing 3 rush, because Cincinnati played a lot of 3 rush, but they were still playing 4-down linemen. Mm-hmm. So if they're not showing, it's going to be very hard to design something to beat it if you're not expecting it. And unless you have something to key off of, it's going to be very hard to know that's coming. I'm not saying they can't, but you're going to have to be gambling to try to figure it out otherwise.
There are keys in that second half to be found.
I'm sure.
I don't think that part will be a problem. I just want to make sure that they're in. My point being is that I think they need new eyes and a new point of view to be ready to attack it. And I hope that that's the case. Does this last one, well, maybe not last one. I might have a couple more. Does the play calling finally become clearer about who's where in 2022?
Can you be more specific at who's where?
When is Eric Bieniemy calling the plays? When is Andy Reid calling the plays? When is Matt Nagy calling plays?
It needs to be, but I'm not sure it's going to be. Andy Reid doesn't seem like he's ever really said that somebody else was calling plays. It doesn't really seem like we've heard whispers that Reid is the master of the first 15, and then it goes elsewhere after that. We've never got confirmation of that. I would hope that you would get confirmation, but same dog, new tricks doesn't generally work when it comes to this organization.
What would you like to see the main first wrinkle, whatever, of this triumvirate in Patrick's ear? I know there's only really one voice, but with 3 head coach caliber guys that he can choose from, like who can make the difference in some of the distractions we saw last year, some of the I won't say necessarily trust issue because I think that's a player issue, but the lack of decisiveness at points.
I think that it goes back to a lot of different things. I think that defenses are going to continue to try to adapt to stop Mahomes. I was looking on Twitter the other day, and Mahomes has – so EPA is expected points per play. And you're sitting there looking at EPA stats. Tom Brady had 3 seasons in 22 years where he led the league in EPA at the QB position. Aaron Rodgers, 3 in 13 years. Patrick Mahomes has 3 in 4 years. His expected points average is way above and beyond anything we've ever seen in the NFL. And I say that because, and I say that to say this, that defenses have got to continue to evolve to be able to slow him down. And until they are able to figure something out and do things that the defense is not expecting, it's going to continue to be one of those things where you're going to deal with different defenses that he's never seen before. Patrick is absolutely smart enough to figure it out. It's just you have to have some kind of evolution of an offense. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was the shovel pass with Travis Kelce and the fullbacks inside. It was the jet sweep a couple of years before that. You went to a 3 tight end set at times. And I know that was before Patrick, but you've got evolutions of the offense. You've got different things that you use. And the key here, in my opinion, is what weapons is he going to have going into this season? Because I do think that they added a significant weapon to that offense.
I agree. And I think we should talk about that and who might be available in this draft as the combine's getting ready to light off. What we're hopeful to see, and maybe you have a couple of guys you either have thoughts on or have questions on. We'll do that here in a second.
Before we get there, I want to tell you about our friends over at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain store, auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand in their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com. at home and in your pocket. Save time and money using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
So, people are in Indianapolis. There are steaks being eaten at St. Elmo's right now. Can't say that I don't wish I was there.
I was going to say, one of these days, you and I are going to have to make it to the combine.
Exactly. I have not been in 20 years now.
So we can have a St. Elmo's steak.
Yes. Or
Just
two.
saying. Yeah.
Well, you have the steak. I'll have the shrimp cocktail because I need that kind of fire in my life.
Fair enough.
You can mail order their sauce, folks. This isn't a commercial for St. Elmo's, but I have had it at home and it's great. So, hey, give it a shot.
We can go multiple times so we can each, whatever. But yeah, I see that all over the Twitter timeline today and just talking about it. I do think it's interesting. I know we want to talk about prospects. The Rams are not sending their coaching staff or Les Snead. I think that's interesting. Mm-hmm. And I kind of get, I will admit I was kind of out of pocket over the weekend and a lot of last week. So I'm not exactly sure how that shook out with prospects getting their teams of people that they wanted, if that happened.
They're able to have their traders and things now. Yeah. They really relaxed the bubble.
They did relax the bubble. Okay, I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And there's a big piece in the media last year and a lot of reporting about the way that Les Snead is changing their process. He and McVay just relating everything to the film and analytics. And, the athletic matrix can help you, Les. I'm just here to tell you. I'll send you a free copy again.
It also depends on, if you have draft picks, maybe you want to go. But, the Rams don't have any draft picks. So
there's that.
Yeah. When you trade all your draft picks away, is that telling us in and of itself why you don't want to go to the combine? Because you're not going to have any draft picks.
Well, they have a free agent edge in Von Miller that they're going to have to deal with. It's it's Aaron Donald leading the road, but you got to have some edges too. This is a great class for it. So you would think that they'd want to get their eyes on, but that's what scouting departments are for. Maybe they feel they have it all locked down as much as they need to.
Yeah, it's going to be very intriguing to see how that shakes out for them. But again, with almost no picks in this draft, it's, they're not going to be getting one of those top edge guys unless they're trading away their farm, which they pretty much have done every year anyway. So who knows when the Rams are going to pick? Yeah. So
the edge position is another one the Chiefs could go at. They could certainly go at wide receiver.
They need to.
Do you have thoughts at what's the priority or what you want to see from somebody this week at the combine?
I think it's just going back to seeing, the combine is all about measurables. It's all about speed. It's all about trying to figure out who fits. But, when you start talking about different positions, specifically maybe wide receiver, route running is not something you're going to see that much of at the combine. You're going to see parts of it, but it's not near as much as you would see it like different practices and in games and whatnot. So you get a better idea there. But it's all about the measurables. It's, what's their speed? What's their height? What's their weight? What's their explosion like? What's their, acceleration like? Those are the things that are really going to stick out. And those are the things that are very important coming from this, because there are teams that still look at that stuff, whether or not it's valid to just look at that or use it as a tool that goes in the bucket with everything else, which is what I think it should be used as.
Yep, absolutely. That's why I do what I do, because it can't be the end all be all. And the more that I incorporate on field,
unless you're Al Davis, sorry.
Well, that's true. But the more I incorporate on field miles per hour data and that kind of thing, the more that it really does differentiate and really take you back to the comment about everybody running on the same track in the same spot with the same opportunity. Can you go apples to apples? Because conditions change, all kinds of stuff changes.
But they train differently for it too.
They do. But in the end, even the on-field stuff ends up being tracking fairly similar with what their other testable scenarios are. So I'm looking for speed from the wide receiver group. It's good, but not great. Without Jameson Williams out there, it's not going to be as much of the hey, could we have record breakers? Tariq Woolen might be a record breaker on the other side, but I don't know that the wide receivers have that kind of speed. Somebody can certainly stand out. I mean, Olave's going to run fast. I think Dotson's going to run fast. The guys that the Chiefs might be interested in, like Burks, like London, not necessarily speed demons.
I still like Williams, but
Do you like him after the ACL at 30?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good with that.
Yeah.
Because that's a debate worth having.
No, because to me, I think that you're looking at who was the last rookie wide receiver that stepped in and had a significant role?
Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase.
No, I'm talking in Kansas City.
Oh, in Kansas City?
It doesn't happen.
Right, I'm trying to think.
Tyreek Hill had a semi-significant role, but it wasn't anything like what he does now.
Yeah.
McCole Hardman had his things that he did, but it wasn't anything like what he does now. My point is, Kansas City doesn't use wide receivers like that because they have to get used to the system. They have to get used to the playbook. So to me, having Williams would be a luxury because I still think that they go out and sign somebody and still could draft somebody. Especially if you're doing a 1-year deal for a guy like Juju.
That could very much be the deal. And that's why it's like this coming right now before free agency gives you an idea of what's available. And I think that does have a bit of a spin on what you want to do in free agency based on similar comparables. So I'm looking for speed from the wide receivers. I'm looking for explosiveness from the edge guys. We'll probably talk about them a little bit further in depth later in the week. Matt is actually at the combine for us this year. He will have a report for us tomorrow and be on tomorrow's show. May go up a little bit later than usual, folks. Be prepared for that. But what's the top position group you want to watch this week?
For me, I think it has to be defensive end. Kansas City has such a dire need, and they still have Frank Clark on the roster. I don't know if that will continue to be the case, over this week. And if it breaks tonight that he's gone. So, that's kind of the way things work when we record sometimes. But yeah, to me, defensive end is by far the biggest need that Kansas City has, I think.
You're going to have a bit of a wait. It's later in the weekend, folks, but we're going to run down some options for you over the next couple of days. So don't miss a show. We're here 5 days a week on every platform for free. That's the bottom line. Locked on every day. Thank you for spending our time with us today. We're back on the roll. Matt will be here tomorrow. We'll continue down the road to the combine in Indianapolis all week long. Thanks for listening today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.